Ebullient greetings. I'm your host, Jacquie Bird of Jacquie Bird Spiritual Wellness, your guide to stress and anxiety relief, mindfulness, awareness, self-care, self-love, and personal growth. Welcome and thank you for joining me as we roll with peace in mind. Today's riff is Are You on the Right Train? Riding on the Urge. These episodes feature people who are doing their thing, they follow their heart and their passion, and they create how they want, what they want, when they want, and they are riding on the right train. Today's spotlight is Olgalyn Jolly. But before you hear from her, I want to tell you about a workshop that's coming up tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday. It's called Bust Your Stress, Connect to Your Joy. It's a meditation and journaling workshop. You want some joy with that stress? The more stressed we are, the more joy gets squeezed out of our existence. We expect stress, but what about joy? So be sure to join me either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, May 14th, 15th, or 16th. And if you're hearing this after this workshop has passed already, not to worry. Check my website. There's always something else coming up. And at the end of this month, on May 30th, is my end of the month guided meditation. So run, not walk. Get thee to my website, JacquieBirdSpiritualWellness.com. And without further ado, here comes my guest. I, as always, am so honored to have my guests come talk to me and spend some time with me. And I have a very long time old friend. I call her OJ, but her name is
Olgalyn Jolly. I am honored to be here, Jacquie Bird.
OJ, tell us where you're from and what you do.
Well, currently I live in New York City and I am a knitwear designer and educator, but I was born upstate New York, Saratoga Springs. I haven't been there probably since we left when I was 2 years old. I probably haven't spent more than 2 weeks there. But I grew up in Rhode Island, the beautiful ocean state.
What's so awesome is that OJ and I have been friends for more than half our lives.
How about that?
How about that?
Yeah. Wow.
I'm just going to love on her for a minute, y'all. What is so wonderful and valuable to me is that, sometimes it's hard, especially as you get older, to make friends. People come in and out of your life, they come in and out of your lives. But when you've had a friend that's been in your life, pretty much for your life, that's really special. And OJ, you've been such a great support to me and a big, huge cheerleader in my endeavors. And I appreciate you so much.
Oh, JB.
I know. I really got over. I know. God, here we are crying now.
I know. Oh, thank you, my dear, dear, dear friend, for being there for decades.
Yeah, we got all wussy on y'all. What the heck?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I had to get that out there, So having said that we've been friends for more than half our lives at this point. One thing that's valuable about having a friend for so long is you get to see them develop. You get to see them flourish. And you and I started off in the show Sophisticated Ladies.
That is correct.
Right?
Many years ago.
Now, you did the national, right?
I did.
The bus and truck?
Yeah, I did the national for national, international, and then the bus and truck. Yeah.
Yeah. I met you on my first equity gig. It was my first. And for those of you that Actors Equity is the union for theater performers. So that was back then, it was a big deal to get your equity card, a big, big, big deal. And OJ I was a swing and I was covering your slot.
Yep. That's right.
And so you were one of the first people I knew of to leave the industry. Like just
really?
Poof. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It was like we did the national, right, and international. I got bumped off the international part of the show, but you did the international, and then we did the bus and truck together. That was an 8-month Odyssey.
Yes.
And you were done. You were like, I'm out.
Oh, yeah. I had sort of been planning for a while. I knew that as much as I loved performing, as much as I loved the physical act of dancing, you know, when the body is good, it feels so good to be, and also working with a group that, you know, camaraderie of rehearsals and, you know, getting shown. I love that. As much as I loved that, there were other things I was interested in, and the old body was not holding up. The pain was not worth it.
I know that's right. That is when it's time to just go, okay.
Yeah.
But what was cool is, like I said, you were one of the first, you were actually the first person I knew to leave the industry, and you just embarked upon a whole new road. Talk about that, please.
Yeah, well, there were other things I was interested in, and I kept looking because I knew I was going to be leaving the business. In fact, I had this thing. I was either going to be famous by 30 or I was going to be out of there. You know, the idea was if I became famous by 30, it would mean I could write my own tickets. I wouldn't necessarily have to do the things that hurt my body.
Right.
But anyway, there were other things I was interested in, and I kept exploring them. And I think I'm really going back, trying to remember my thought process many years ago. But I think it was, if I had a job while I was 30, I would continue that job till it was over. And so I did have a job. I think the bus and truck was the job I booked before I was 30, and I finished it to the end, and then I was done. And fortunately, I had already found out what I wanted to do. Through the international tour, we went to Japan. As you know, you eventually went with the same show to Japan, right?
That's right. I sure did. I got there anyway.
And it was a time when, all these fabulous Japanese fashion things were popular, and we were right there. And so I got to see all these fabulous sweaters. When I saw some Issey Miyake sweaters and some from the late Kanzai, his sweaters, I just thought, okay, that's what I want to do. I want to learn how to make sweaters, how to design sweaters, how to knit sweaters. And I knew I didn't want to hand knit them. I knew about knitting machines because I swear when I was a child, I saw a commercial with a toy knitting machine. And I acquired a knitting machine right after that tour, started working, took a few lessons. Later, when I booked the bus and truck, I had a travel case made for my knitting machine. I used to carry it. Yeah, I used to.
That's right.
That was one of my allowed pieces of luggage because, who needs clothes when you can carry a knitting machine, right? So carried my knitting machine, go into the bus, right? And what it's like in some places, you have lots of time on your hands during the day. So I just set up in the hotel room and practiced my moves. Later on, when I got off the tour, I took some serious knitting lessons and honed my skills, started working for a few people here and there, and that's how it began.
Wow. But I forgot about you having that knitting machine on tour. I totally forgot about that. That's right, because sometimes we had a lot of downtime. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And I remember we wouldn't see you until the showtime because you would be in your room knitting. Yeah. And I remember coming to visit you after the tour was over. We were back in town, and you were really, really like cooking in terms of moving into another gear with your knitting. How did you navigate moving from something you'd done at that point for your life into this new arena where you knew no one, right?
That's right. No one. Well, it happened to be, I'll call it the golden age of machine knitting, of home machine knitting, let me put it that way. So I had a little knitting machine, but there were machine knitting guilds, just organizations in different regions of the country. And I would attend meetings. There was one locally in the New York City area. I would attend meetings, and the home knitters would exchange skills. So I got to meet people that way. And then I took classes at FIT and Parsons School of Design. One of my best
teachers. I can't even find words to describe her. Susanna Lewis taught at Parsons. I got to study with her, and she had written this book, A Machine Knitter's Guide to Creating Fabrics, which was just the book. In fact, machine knitters call it Bible, the home machine. Just really, really good. It's still good today, even though many of the machines she mentions in the book are no longer manufactured. But as far as theory and principles go, it's a really great book. And I got to study with her at Parsons. And
wow.
So little by little, I got to meet people. Through the Machine Knitting Guild, there were some designers who would go, I guess, just to hone their skills, or people who were just starting businesses. And so I got to meet them, and I got to work for them, production work for them here and there.
Oh my goodness.
So that's little by little, that's how I got my foot in the door. I got my toes wet.
Yeah. So you just started to go and put yourself out there and meet and connect with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and what's so wonderful is you've come full circle. Those two places that you studied at, you are now on the faculty.
Oh, that's right. I'm on part-time faculty at each of those places. Yeah.
That is just so awesome. So I remember you were knitting swatches for people.
Yeah, that was one of the most fun jobs I ever did, and I still enjoy doing it. And the reason it's so great is that you get to use a whole bunch of skills and just a little piece of fabric, and you just put it in there. And my favorite part is creating or developing stitch patterns, a complete small piece. And it doesn't take too long. The thinking may take a long time, but the knitting won't take a long time. And I loved that.
You took time off to raise a child.
I did that, yes.
A very, very responsible young man. When we reconnected, we were both at that point of, okay, what am I gonna do with myself?
That's right.
Because for you, the whole swatch thing had kind of dried up.
Yeah, it dried. I kind of left for a little bit because we were homeschooling our son. My husband and I, Ken and I, were homeschooling him. So that takes a lot of time. And when my son became about 6 or so, I kind of had to leave the business. While I was gone, the whole knitting industry changed. And not only that, people I knew were no longer with the industry. They had passed away, or they had retired, or they'd moved on. Wow. So yeah, I kind of had to start again.
Yeah, but this is one of the reasons I find your story so compelling. Okay, now what do I do? This is something I love. How do I don't always like using the word reinventing, because it's like, you just make different choices. Oh, she reinvented herself. Well, she's still who she is, but she's doing something different. So, but you were like, okay, now how do I get back in with the new playing field? And a lot of people are in that position now where they've stepped away to raise a family and they come back out and things are very different.
Yeah. Fortunately, not everyone. I have to correct myself. Not everyone had left. I did have one associate who helped me with a couple of interviews. And I suppose just putting myself online, it's amazing how many connections I've made by just having a website, trying to, post regularly.
The reason I'm reacting here is because so many, particularly young Black people starting out with their businesses, do not have websites. Oh. You have Instagram and you think that that's it.
Oh, no.
And Facebook. School them, OJ.
Yeah, the website is it. It establishes you as a real entity, not just someone who has an account on whatever, Instagram or Facebook or whatever. It's a place where people can see a little bit about your past, see what you are currently doing, and it basically legitimizes you.
Yes.
So I've had many people reach out to me through the website, through the contact page, through the form. And I've made several connections that way. Yeah.
And so as you reemerged into the industry and your contact was helping you with a couple of interviews and you set up an online presence in terms of having a website, your career has kind of morphed and shifted. Can you talk about some of that journey?
Yeah. I originally, when I got back in, I learned that my position no longer existed. In other words, my position making swatches, developing swatches for other people didn't really exist as an occupation anymore. I had to figure out what it was I did want to do. For a while, I even considered maybe I won't go back to knitting. Maybe there's something else. I had all this experience with homeschooling, but maybe something along there. I mean, we were working on a book for a long time.
Yes.
And it's great. We have to get back to it sometime.
And I'm glad that you said that, because I was thinking maybe within the last couple of months, we had this really great book we had started writing. Yeah. And I wanted to know if you wanted to go back to it at some point.
At some point.
Yes, yes. So stay tuned, y'all. Stay tuned for that. And it was so much fun writing it.
It was. I love the premise, story, where it was going. Yeah.
Yes. So we have to pick that up. All right. So you were considering whether to continue in the industry.
Yeah, I didn't know how to find my way. And then I was going to do patterns for the machine knitters, and there really didn't seem to, I couldn't connect with that many machine knitters at the time. But there were people, former acquaintance, former colleague, had asked me if I could create some machine knitted fabric for her, because she was now retired. She was used to, getting the best sweater knit fabrics. And she was no longer able to get them where she was. So she asked me to do it, which I did. And it led to another one and another one. And then I realized that there probably is some sort of market for machine knitted fabrics, for sweater knit fabrics, because the ones that are available were either all synthetic fibers or uninteresting. So I started looking for a way to get my designs produced. And if I do that, then I could sell yardage to the sewing industry, to especially the home sewers who don't have access to it and they want to cut and sew sweaters. So even though I had primarily done sweaters that were full fashion, meaning that you make each piece to shape, there was a whole market I saw of people who sewed, who wanted to simply cut and sew the sweaters. And that's a whole other sweater market. But the problem was I didn't have any factory connections that did yardage. So I had to search for that. And I didn't know how to really do it. No one, people would help me, but then the mills, the knitting mills were, far away. They were in New England, or they were in Ohio, in California. Eventually, like after about a year, I found one in New Jersey. I found one in the Bronx. So I would contract the mills to knit some of my designs as fabric. And I sold them by the yard to interested sewing people. People, home sewers mostly. But occasionally I'd get like a television studio who wanted to connect, or a designer, or several actually emerging designers. They're just starting, and maybe they were doing sportswear and they wanted to have some sort of fabric to do a cut and sew sweater. So I worked with a bunch of people that way. I was able to get connections because of a website.
Yes.
People would find me.
Yeah, it's really important to have a website. Somebody can go to your website and get, especially if it's well done and well thought out, can get an idea of what kind of person they're going to be dealing with. What is their platform? What is their mission statement? What is, how they get started, that you get a more well-rounded view of this person that you're about to purchase from. You ask the question, how do I do this? And you listen to, what was coming to you and just following leads. And, timing is everything. It's like sometimes it doesn't happen when you want it to happen or when you think it should happen, but you were patient. You kept looking. Because I remember that part of the journey where you were looking for somebody to produce your fabrics. And you also were having some issues with places, if I remember correctly, that didn't want to take your account because it wasn't enough.
Oh, absolutely. That was a big thing. I was just starting out. Obviously, I can't do those large minimum orders. Right. So I was fortunate to find these places that were willing to work with a smaller order.
My theory is, okay, you're going to tell me no, but somebody's going to tell me yes. Somebody's going to tell me yes, doggone it, So you had that tenacity and you just kept at it. So as you started to sew the patterns, but then other things started coming your way in terms of doing classes, lessons, and...
Yeah. I don't know what the first one was, but eventually I ended up at FIT. I don't know.
And for those of you that don't know FIT, Google it. FIT is like one of the premier fashion schools, period. Not just in New York, just period. Which was
it was a pleasure and fun to teach. It's so great teaching a whole bunch of eager fashion designers. Some of them never even go into knitwear, but they want to broaden their knowledge. And so the introduction to knitwear design is required class. So all fifth semester students have to take it. So I get a whole range of a fifth semester fashion design students. A large class, fifth semester. So there are several machine knitting teachers, but I got to teach quite a few classes.
That is so awesome. And now you're at Parsons as well.
Yeah. That they have
He's
not
so
done
modest,
any studio.
He's so modest.
Well, I was going to say, so they haven't done any studio classes since the pandemic. So even though I'm officially a part-time lecturer, as it's called, no classes. FIT, we were able to translate classes to a home knitting environment where we teach the same machine knitting skills, but on what's called a knit loom. Parsons, they're trying to figure out how they're going to bring the studio classes back. But so far, last semester, nothing yet. So I enjoyed teaching there, though, so much. It's a big, bright studio and a small classes, and the students are extremely eager to learn.
Oh,
in fact, so many of them.
Pleasure.
Yeah, and many of them actually contact me after they leave the class just to ask me about something.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So it's always good to hear what they're doing and to see that they are still interested in machine knitting.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
I advise some of them on, what machines to get and so on.
Speaking of what machines to get, you want to talk about what machine to get?
Oh, well, there's this one.
Yes, talk about this.
This is my newest, and I'm truly enjoying it. It's called a Knitterate, 3 or 4 years ago. It was a Kickstarter project, and I'd been following one of the founders of the company for quite a while on Twitter, I guess. And I followed him through his earlier knitting machine, hoping that, it would come to market soon or the instructions or something would be available. Literally, made it himself. But then this thing was developed. And so, I jumped right on it when it was on Kickstarter. So I got one of the very first machines, and I'm quite thrilled to be working with it. It's like a mini industrial machine. It sits on a table, and it's fun. And now I'm an independent contractor working with a company. I do demonstrations and
and that went from following this man on Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, we corresponded after I was an early bird backer of machine on Kickstarter, just because I wanted to see how we could, maybe we could do some sort of project with my FIT students at the time and so on. I think we corresponded about something else too. And eventually I was asked if I wanted to be a Knitwear ambassador. So I'm the
Wow.
North American Knitwear ambassador.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, what is this so wonderful? Again, is, going from not knowing how to step back into an industry that years prior to that, you stepped into not knowing anyone, to being an ambassador for a knitting machine.
Well, the name is kind of fancy, ambassador. I
like ambassador. We're going to keep that. We're going to keep
a consulate or anything. Or
no, I like ambassador. I like that. No, that just shows that you gotta stay with it and not give up. Stick to your dreams. Don't give up, because the way that they manifest, you don't know what that's gonna be. So I think it's just such a great example of what's possible.
Yeah, I think the idea is if you have a great interest and passion, maybe in something, it's not necessary that you get to do it right away the way you want to do it. But if you talk about it with whoever will listen, and if you let it be known, spread the word out into the into the cosmos. Might as well go big.
Yeah, might as well go big. That's right.
Eventually you make connections with other people who are interested, and sometimes good things develop out of those connections that you make.
Yeah. Oh man, that is so great. So currently, first of all, you did one already, right? For Vogue Knitting? A workshop?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So this is someone who didn't find me originally through my website. She found me originally through Instagram.
We need to have that too.
Yeah.
We need both.
But
right.
So I was approached and asked to teach at the next, what they call Virtual Knitting Live by Vogue Knitting. Vogue Knitting has, before pandemic, Vogue Knitting used to have various knitting conventions, I'll call them. 3 or 4 times a year in various locations. But as we all did, they had to shift things around. And so now, it seems every month, they're having these little online live knitting events. And what I'm thrilled with is it used to be primarily a hand knitting. They'd maybe have one machine knitting course, but now they have several machine knitting courses. So I'm not the only machine knitting teacher there. There are, I think, maybe 5. And they offer about 10 classes in machine knitting, which is wonderful. And it's almost a throwback to when I first started machine knitting, where there used to be machine knitting conferences, and machine knitting was more integrated with hand knitting.
My goodness, that is fantastic. Okay, I was trying to say 2 words. It was like, which one's going to come out first? Oh, so I'll say fantastic.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, it is. It's great that's happening.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So wait a minute. These people just approached you? You had not...
Yeah, I was just asked to do it. And then I didn't know, I wondered, what topic will I do? And I have a Facebook group that's mostly for the cut and sew aspect of my business. I teach a course online, my own course on how to cut and sew a sweater. And I have a Facebook group mainly for people who sew, but I found that there were all these machine knitters who also wanted to cut and sew. And many of them are in the group. And so I just posed to the group. I've been asked by an organization to teach for the machine knitters in the group, what are your suggestions? And I gave a few suggestions, but one person came up with this topic, which was the topic called Creative Starts for Your Machine Knitted Sweater, which goes into details on how you start a machine knitted sweater. And it's a beginner's class. Sometimes people learn how to cast on and they learn how to do this, but there's so much more. And you can be a beginner and you can add creativity to just a simple sweater by just having something fancy at the beginning. These starts, you start at the bottom of the sweater. So these starts go at the bottom of the front, the back, or the bottom of the sleeve, like a cuff. And that was suggested by someone. And I think it was the second most voted, the second highest one. And I thought, that's an interesting topic. And I bet I'm so glad that person name is Fiona.
Wow.
I'm so glad she suggested it.
Uh-huh.
And
wow. And that was smart to ask.
Oh,
on your part.
I've learned to rely on the people who are interested, just to find out
what
it is exactly
right.
that they're interested in. Yeah.
And okay, so you mentioned that you have a cut and sew course that you teach.
Yes.
And that's available?
That's available online through my website. Yeah, I did a course because I was doing yardage, and a lot of people who sew were having trouble, not with my fabric necessarily, because I hadn't put my fabric out yet, but they were cutting and sewing sweaters. There are a whole bunch of new sewing patterns for cut and sew sweaters. The major pattern companies have released them, and there are a whole bunch of independent pattern designers who have released sewing patterns for sweaters. And people who sew were simply having trouble because it's a little tricky until you get the idea. So, and plus, and as I said, I was about to release my my yardage too. So I saw a need.
Right.
So I created the class. And as I said, not only sewists enroll, but a lot of machine knitters who want an easy way to make a sweater. Because as a hand knitter, it gets complex with the increases and decreases.
Yes, it does.
Shaping, all that.
Yes.
So this way, if the beginners already have sewing skills, especially, they can jump directly from beginner machine knitter to fancy sweater. Just using their sewing skills. Yeah.
Nice. That's a big incentive for people who want it now.
Yep.
they want instant. So that's really good. So folks, reach out to OJ. I'm going to have all her contact information in the description and show notes for this episode. But just how can people find you?
Oh, the best way, the hub is my website, and it is ojolly.net. That's OJOLLY.net. And there are connections to all my various enterprises right there.
See, and that's the other advantage of having a website, because everything that you do can be right there for people to check. And make sure when you go to OJ's site, join her mailing list.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, join her mailing list. That way you can keep up with her.
Yeah,
you can keep up with her because she's got a bunch of stuff going on. So OJ, in terms of where you are in this moment, what are you cooking up in terms of dreams?
It's funny for me to say this after going through everything we've just spoken about, but I'm dreaming of simplifying things just a little bit.
Yeah.
Very often, feast or famine. And I am so lucky I am feasting right now.
I love it.
But I just want to sort of mellow things out a bit and just pick projects that I particularly want to do and I have a great desire to do. And, I know what they are. So that's not the problem. But I need to make time for this and to blend it with my personal life. Right now, everything's jamming up against each other. And so that's my dream.
I love it. Thank you so much for just giving us so much wisdom, because it's interesting that we hear the journey, but also now the desire to simplify. And that's important for people to hear, So thank you so much, OJ.
I've
been trying to get this woman for months.
Jackie, it's always a delight talking with you. And I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed that and was thoroughly inspired and uplifted by what you heard. If you are in a situation currently that is unfulfilling to you, be it a job or a career you've been pursuing, and you feel like there's something else that you really want to do or you already know what that is, get quiet, sit still, breathe in and out deeply, and begin to envision what that is that you wish to create. And remember, there's nothing too big, it's only small ideas. Think big and write that down. What is it that you wish to create? Write it down, put it in your phone, speak it out loud to people that are supportive of you, and go for it. Go for it. Don't delay. Start now, even if you plot in your mind what your escape plan is going to be. But go for it. This life is meant to be lived to the fullest. Take advantage. No matter what is happening in your life right now, there can always be room to create more. Thank you so much for listening. Please remember to visit JacquieBirdSpiritualWellness.com, join my mailing list. I've got workshops coming up, as I mentioned earlier in the program. I have audiobooks, guided meditation videos, and audio and meditation music, everything for inspiration and to help you relieve stress, increase your mindfulness and awareness and presence. And remember to always roll with peace in mind.